Okay, welcome back. I'm very excited. Today we're going to launch into the Black Box series. We're going to start with Mario Bros. Because it's a longer game and I'll be able to talk a little more. And instead of talk about the game itself, it's pretty self-explanatory. I'll be able to just talk about the Black Box series as a whole, kind of get that out of the way so that for the rest of the series we can just kind of focus on the games themselves. Alright, and one great thing about the Black Box games on the NES Mini is that your high score, you can actually save it. When you set a new high score, just create a suspend point, and voila, there it is. Always one of the biggest complaints about old NES games that were score chasers, like, Burger Time, Paperboy, Mario Bros, Donkey Kong. Once you turn off the game, that score is wiped out. So if you didn't write it down, or take a picture of it, some people did, there was no way. Here, you just create a suspend point. I do wish that there were more score chasers on the NES Mini so that I could keep all my high scores. I wish they had Popeye and Wrecking Crew and Donkey Kong 3. Anyway, so let's go ahead and jump right into Mario Bros, our first Black Box game in this series. And we're going to use my suspend point, because that way we'll have my high score at the top. Phase 57, 555,380 points. Pretty good. I doubt I'll beat it. Alright, so let's go ahead and start. And right off the bat, one thing I have to mention about this Black Box playlist that I'm starting is there's about 7 games that I won't be able to do. And I'm sure you can guess what they are. I'm not going to do Donkey Kong Jr. Math because it is rare and expensive. I'm not going to do either of the Rob the Robot games. No Gyromite, no Stack Up. Rob the Robot will work on a modern-day television, I think. But finding a Rob the Robot with all the pieces in working condition is pretty tough, pretty expensive. The games, from what I hear, Gyromite and Stack Up, really not that good anyway. And from what I understand, also, Rob doesn't really work all that well either. Like, if you've seen the AVGN episode 100, which was the Rob the Robot episode where he played Gyromite and Stack Up, he has problems. He's not a very good peripheral, so it's no small wonder why Rob the Robot only had 2 games and isn't really remembered all that well, except for being kind of a weird little toy. So, no Gyromite, no Stack Up. And then, most regrettably, we will not be doing any of the 4 Black Box Zapper games. No Gumshoe, no Hogan's Alley, no Duck Hunt, no Wild Gunman. And the problem with those games is, as you guessed, you need it to run it on a CRT TV. Modern televisions will not do the Zapper Gun games. I wanted to make sure I had my facts in order before I stated that. Apparently, it is possible to do the Zapper on a modern-day television, but it's complicated. You have to have an EverDrive, and then there's a third-party Zapper that you use, and it will work, presumably. It's very complicated, and quite frankly, I don't know, I'm just not that interested, so as much as I love the Zapper games, and I really do, until the tech gets a little bit better, we're just going to have to be okay with not doing them. So instead, I'll just give you a brief overview of the Black Box Zapper games. Gumshoe is not good at all. That's a weird one. Duck Hunt, very little to say about it. Everyone's played it. That was the famous combination cartridge with Super Mario Brothers on it. Duck Hunt's fun. It works. You could argue that that's the best. I think it probably is the best Black Box Zapper game. And if it is, a close second goes to Hogan's Alley. That is just a blank shooting gallery where you shoot at paper targets. It's a lot of fun. And then everyone always talks about Wild Gunman. It kind of bugs me how retro gamers have just kind of arbitrarily anointed Wild Gunman as being the best of the black box Zapper games. Not just the best of the black box Zapper games, but the best of the entire Zapper library. I very strongly disagree with that. Duck Hunt, I think, is better because you have moving targets as a black box Zapper game. You know, Wild Gunman's just a quick draw game, which is kind of gimmicky. When I was, you know, as a kid, oh, no, there's our first life gone. As a kid, I didn't really appreciate the Zapper. You know, just like everyone else, I kind of cheesed it. Sat close to the TV screen and sniped the ducks from 6 inches away, which is not how you're supposed to do it. You know, the Zapper did work. It was a great peripheral. The sights were accurate. You know, the technology was quite good. So when I first started collecting retro games in the late 90s, I did finally, you know, I was a teenager, and I did finally decide, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and give the Zapper games a fair chance. And I found that I really enjoyed Duck Hunt, but the Zapper game I enjoyed the most was Barker Bill's Trick Shooting. That is hands down the absolute best of the Zapper library. You have some very cool minigames. They're all fun, very bright, colorful, good sounds, but most importantly, they are very fair. The biggest complaint I had with some of the other Zapper games, like Laser Invasion, To the Earth for sure, the targets moved way too fast. It was much too difficult. Yeah, that's not the case with Barker Bill's Trick Shooting. The targets are very fair. And more importantly, it's just a really cool theme. It's themed after like a late 19th, early 20th century carnival trick shooting. If you think of like Back to the Future, you know, where Marty is at the festival and he, you know, does the trick shot gallery, or if you ever seen The Last Samurai, the scene where Tom Cruise at the beginning where he does the trick shooting to try and sell some guns, you know, it's like that. Oof, close call. So yeah, if we're talking Zapper games, I'm Barker Bill's Trick Shooting all the way. Okay, so all the talk of the games that we're not doing, the 4 Zapper games, the 2 Rob the Robot games, and Donkey Kong Jr. Math. Now let's talk some black box. So, I'm not going to bore you with history about this and that. There's other channels for that. What I will say, though, is when it comes to the black box games, the phrase I hear used the most, and I've always thought it's a bit on the nebulous side, is test marketing. You know, these are the games that came out for the Nintendo Entertainment System back in, you know, 1985 or 1986 when it was being test marketed. And basically what I get out of that is these are the games that came out for the Nintendo Entertainment System when nobody owned it, because I have yet to hear like anyone talking about owning. I'm sure that people did. I just don't know any of them, and I don't, you know, think I ever will. Persons that owned the NES back in 1985, 1986, when these games, you know, the Black Box series came out. You know, by the time these games were basic for all practical purposes. When these games, or excuse me, when 99% of Nintendo gamers got their Nintendo Entertainment System, these games were already antiquated. There were already better games out. Well, excuse me, not better, but more complex games out. Games that would have been more interesting to, gamers back in 1988, 1989. Games like Castlevania, Super Mario Bros. 2, Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Those were the games that gamers were genuinely interested in. If you've seen the episode of Mike and Bootsy where they play, I think it's Donkey Kong Jr., and Bootsy talks about how he owned Donkey Kong Jr., the black box, on his NES as a kid, and it left a sour taste in his mouth because, there were better games out there were more complex games out back then that he was much more interested in, and a game like Donkey Kong Jr. seemed very limited. It was only, the 4 screens where you're just score chasing. By the way, we're over 100,000 points. I feel like I'm having a pretty good game so far. We're probably not going to come anywhere near my high score up there, but that's okay. So when you do play these games, what you find yourself doing is you really have to put yourself in the mindset of someone, who was quote-unquote field testing, playing a Nintendo Entertainment System back in 1986 when there was nothing better, or when this was the best that the system had to offer. And if you can do that, you find yourself absolutely loving this system, as you should. These black box games, they're great to still play today. They're very much overlooked because, so many of us looked at them as, oh, those are, crummy old games. Back in 1989 or 1990 or whenever we got our Nintendo Entertainment System and we were, really enjoying other games. Oh, there goes another one. If you can do that, though, if you can put yourself back in 1986, you will find yourself loving this because, as I've stated numerous times on this channel, as I get older, nothing wrong with Super Mario Bros. 3 or Mega Man 6. I love those games. I've played them a ton. But I still love coming back to the score chasers. It's originally the reason why I started this channel years ago was I wanted to play score chasers where I could, just upload footage of myself getting new high scores and just enjoying classic video games. And I have gotten a bit away from that. But we're going to rectify that by playing some black box games. And we're going to get around to score chasing. We will have fun doing all sorts of cool things like, getting a new high score in Donkey Kong 3. I got a new high score in Balloon Fight the other day. I didn't record it, but, I'm feeling like I could probably record myself getting a few more. And I don't know, I'm just really enjoying these games for what they are. Ah, that was a waste. I didn't get any coins out of that. That's what we call leaving points on the table. And the more you play games like Mario Bros. Or Donkey Kong, just the more you find yourself falling in love with it. Balloon fight. It's just you versus the game. You're not trying to do anything other than set a new high score to better yourself. It sucks you in. It's almost like going into a time warp back to the golden era of video games, 1982, when games like Ms. Pac-Man and Galaga and Donkey Kong absolutely, Defender, when they absolutely ruled the world. And it was all about getting a high score. But like I said, put yourself back in, turn back the clock, pretend it's 1986 for a minute. This game is absolutely fantastic. This game, Balloon Fight, Popeye, you do the two-player mode, you challenge each other, you try to get the better score. Whoever can get the better score is just the master. Everyone on the block is playing it and trying to keep track of their score. Like, this is basically an extension of what it was like back in 1982 when, the gamers of that day were playing these games and were trying to, get high scores. That's what the black box is all about. I guess you could also say it's about the sports games too. They had plenty of those. Soccer, ice hockey, 10-yard fight, pro wrestling. Golf. And we'll get to those. Those games are fine too. But honestly, it's the score-chasing black box games that I think steal the show, and they've aged so well because they were so overlooked by, gamers back in 1988 that just absolutely missed out on them. You could play Castlevania every day for a month and master it, probably within a month, master it maybe in a week or two. But a game like Donkey Kong, you could play it multiple times every day for 6 months and probably never master it. It's that complex. For a simple game, it's extremely complex. It's also extremely difficult. May have already mentioned this, but I think I've already played close to half of the black box games on this channel. But we're going to keep going anyway. We're going to, redo a bunch of them anyway. Add them to our black box playlist. This is sort of a treat to myself, taking a little bit of a break because I was, doing the no-death runs for the Mega Man games. And I got 2, 3, and 4 done, half the series. I don't think I'll ever get a no-death run for 1. There goes another life. Would like to eventually get no-death runs on 5 and 6. Double Dragon, Ghostbusters 2. Yeah, I was doing a lot of the mid-games. I was really enjoying doing those, beating the games. We'll get back to those, but for right now, I just want to take a break from that and enjoy the black box games. This is like comfort food. Oh, and that's game over. Missed the missed the jump on that one. That's okay. Didn't get 200,000 points, which is disappointing. 194. So anyway, but this is our introduction to the black box games. Hope you enjoyed it. I love playing these games, and we're going to be playing a lot more of them. So stay tuned. Not sure which black box game I'm going to do next, but whatever it is, I am going to have a really good time doing it.